Well, it's certainly a key visit and one that's likely to shape future relations between the two countries. Chief Strategist at Belpointe, David Nelson, joins us live from New York to discuss this further. Welcome.
Thank you for having me.
So in your opinion, what are some of the key outcomes from this visit?
This is a very decidedly different path that President Xi is taking. He's looking to go down a path of diplomacy. The embargo hit South Korean business very, very hard, and it's important to remember for your viewers that China represents 25% of exports in South Korea. So, very important visit for President Moon Jae. And I believe this is his first visit since becoming president. But in the end, this is all going to center down to what's going on in the Korean Peninsula. That's certainly going to have to be part of the talks and part of any bilateral trade deal here.
So considering the expectations going into this visit, were they met, and what might be the next steps in the relationship?
You know, it's probably way too soon to say, you know, what the next step is. I think we're going to have to see how this pans out for both sides here. But certainly on an economic front, it may take some time. But on a geopolitical front, there's been huge progress. If you look at what already has happened here in the United States, Rex Tillerson, the Secretary of State for the U.S., has said that he is willing to sit down with all parties, including North Korea, without any preconditions. So this visit alone, to me, has conducted great diplomacy.
And there was certainly a huge business delegation. So how do you think the outcome of this visit, how do you see that affecting the bilateral economic and trade ties going forward?
You know, Rachelle, diplomacy works slowly, and diplomacy and trade in itself is a wonderful foreign policy tool and can go great strides, far better than the harsh rhetoric that we've seen in the past here. But I think in the end, like I said earlier, it's going to have to gravitate back what can be accomplished on the Korean Peninsula. It's important to remember that even if there was a preemptive strike by the United States into North Korea to eliminate any nuclear weapons, Seoul, South Korea is only 30 miles from the demilitarized zone, and that's well within the range of the conventional weapons. So I hope this rhetoric that we're seeing right now plays out, and we can move down a path of trade and diplomacy rather than the harsh rhetoric that we've seen over the last 6 months.
Now, since China is South Korea's biggest trading partner, what do you think needs to be done to really consolidate their bilateral ties?
I think they have to continue it for sure. You know, China is, you know, everybody's most important trading partner, certainly even here for us here in the United States. I think South Korea will make some concessions. China might make some concessions. Even here in the United States, I look at Alphabet or Google. They left China, you know, several years ago. And now they've decided to go back to the bargaining table. They're actually opening up a research center in China to deal with artificial intelligence, and they'll be dealing with a lot of Chinese scientists there. So I'm expecting something positive out of that. So it's really important for all the parties. Trade helps everyone.
And to that point, what are your thoughts on the prospect of upgrading the China, South Korea, and Japan free trade agreement?
I think the prospects are high if we have success here, and we're not going to know next week. It's going to be weeks, months, perhaps at least a year before we see the final result of this. If the conversation continues on this very, very positive tone, and remember, this all started with President Xi going down this path. It was a very positive path to take. If that continues, I expect positive outcome on any free trade agreement.
And just quickly, of the relationship, President Xi said they were friendly neighbors and strategic cooperation partners. What do you see as the main areas of cooperation for China and South Korea that they can move forward with?
I think it'll be commerce, for sure. And, you know, I think it's very understandable. All of this comes back to the THAAD missile system, and China was upset that this was brought in. But like I said, South Korea is under military threat right now. I think if they continue on the trade path, I expect a lot of progress to be made, not just with China and South Korea, but between China and the United States as well.
All right. Well, thank you as always for your insights. David Nelson there, Chief Strategist at Belpointe.